Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's dressed like this for a reason. Today I'm going to be reviewing the album Late Checkout by Dent May. And listening to this, which I find to be a very agreeable, very listenable album, I've listened to it maybe 5 times in the last couple of days, and I enjoy it more each time. But there's a question that I think needs to be asked. Can something be TOO L.A.? That is to say, to Los Angeles. What is it about music from Los Angeles which, once you can start to recognize its traits and its features, becomes such a part of the music itself that we have to wonder if it can go too far? Certainly Dent May's Late Checkout is an album which fits in that category. Now it's funny because I almost reviewed an album by someone named Duckworth. He is a West Coast rapper, and my wife, the Dr. Mrs. Payne, who knows very little about hip-hop music, I've been teaching her a little bit, and she overheard it, and she just goes, "Is that West Coast?" And I was very proud of her. It's like, yes, it is. And so this kind of LA phenomena doesn't just apply to rock and roll or just to rap. It's a general feeling that comes over all music from LA. Now, I don't want to overgeneralize, but at least in terms of rock and roll, the best way I think we could describe it is a softening of the edges, an intentional softening. So often East Coast music, particularly music from New York, is known for its jagged edges and its roughness and its toughness and its coarseness. So much of what makes LA music LA is just this intentional, just round that corner. You know, the voice is a little bit harsh. Let's do a little bit of chorus effect. Let's smooth it out. Let's have a slide guitar as opposed to a blistering fast guitar. Let's have everything be, for lack of a better word, just more laid back. Now, I'm from the East Coast, and so part of me inherently hates this. Part of me identifies and has some sense of myself as a person as being like, I am anti-laid back. I am pro-aggression. I am pro-discomfort. I don't like any of this laid back, Eagles sounding music. But as I grew up, and especially after I lived in LA for a couple of years, I'm now back on the East Coast, but I came to love it. And in particular, I came to love it through music of artists like Harry Nilsson, who you see in the back, like Randy Newman, like the Beach Boys, like Jackson Browne, everything up until the Eagles. Once you get to the Eagles, you get TOO L.A. Like, that's the line, And how do we reach that point? And when does it go over? Speaking of the Beach Boys, I was driving my daughter to the doctor, and we were listening to this album. And she has good taste in music, and she often just says what she thinks. And she just goes, is this group just trying to be the Beach Boys? And in a way, I understand it, right? The song production is very well done. The singing, lots of very, very high falsetto, excellent singing. The first thing I said to her was, easier said than done, which is actually a track on this album. I said, easier said than done. Lots of bands can try to sound like the Beach Boys, but they can very, very rarely do it. But more importantly, this is just one singer. It's almost a Beach Boy album. And I'd be curious to see what would happen if he actually got a full bevy of singers to fill out the rest of the register. But it definitely has that feeling. If you like the feeling of Nilsson's songwriting, where he's down on his luck, or maybe Randy Newman's songwriting, kind of just nice, simple songs, able to craft, each song tells a story, each title of every song tells the story about what it's going to be. It communicates a lot just like that. But kind of having that sort of singer-songwriter mentality with a very beautiful, angelic Brian Wilson pre-losing his voice sound is an amazing combination of quality, mixed with a sort of modern indie mentality, like a sort of indie production mentality where things are well done, well controlled, well crafted. At no point did I hear this and go, oh my God, this is a masterpiece of production. But all the way throughout, every song had this wonderful LA feel from start to finish. According to his bio that I read, I do 5 minutes of research before every video, this singer, Dent May, was very influenced by Serge Gainsbourg. That's why you have him up there as well, my little background now. That might fall, by the way, in the middle of the video. It's very precarious, so pay attention to that. That could be exciting. And I could really see this comparison. Not musically. He doesn't sound, Gainsbourg famously barely never sang. He basically talked. But the thing that Gainsbourg did, and Nilsson, I would say probably too, is project their personality through multiple different styles of music. mainly Gainsbourg, not so much Nilsson, but like project their personality through many different styles of music, to adopt musical styles, to adopt a certain level of affect, but still make music that is real, that is authentic, that is sincere. It's much like it's easier said than done to be like the Beach Boys. It's easier said than done to be like Serge Gainsbourg. France is littered with a bunch of people who smoke too much and drink too much and are just like, I'm Gainsbourg. No, you're not. You're an alcoholic. But to be able to do this trick, because Gainsbourg was very much all affect, you know, with his cigarettes and his pasties and his suit with a shirt and no tie, and his personality that he put out there, yet he never released an album that was fake. He never released an album that was bad, no matter how many times he changed styles or adopted the style of places where he was. So that's the reason that I'm dressed like this. I mean, even this guy, Dent May, if you see the album cover, you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the style that could potentially overwhelm the substance. He's dressed in a light blue suit and a white shirt, and that's all the videos, and he has the long hair, and he's in this, you know, hotel. You could say that there's a very Wes Anderson vibe to this whole scene here. But I would say, unlike Wes Anderson at his worst, and like Wes Anderson at his best, Dent May is able to communicate real human emotions and make a real album that is not just affect, is not just surface, and is not just some kind of twee, cute take on L.A. Apparently, according to my research, this guy was discovered by Animal Collective. So I reviewed them last week. I'll put the video up there if I remember, which I rarely do. And apparently he's from Mississippi. And that's the most important thing for music that is LA music, is that LA music cannot be made by anybody who's from LA. You have to be from somewhere else, and you have to move there. Thematically, this album is quite unified. It's mostly about a kind of weird mixture of intimacy and distance. The name of the album is Late Checkout. There's a song called Hotel Stationery. There's this real feel that he's writing about the intimacy and, like, because hotels are interesting places, right? Like, you could, to get for all French professor on you, Apollinaire wrote a great poem about a hotel once. But this weird sort of thing where you're home and not home at the same time, where you miss home, but it's also fun and exciting because you get to be somewhere new. It's a really interesting dynamic, which I think could be explored a lot further, and this album does that a fair amount. And I really think it's this idea of the isolation, the sort of comfortable isolation of a hotel. It seems that this album is about somebody who is comfortably isolated, while at times successfully reaching out and connecting to other people. And in that way, it's sort of split, I would say. It's a little bit difficult to say because at times it seems like it's a happy love album, and then other times it's like, I'm so sad, I just want to drink and die. So it's hard to figure out there, but probably they're both true, right? In the Bandcamp description for Dent May, he describes himself as a hotel bar lounge singer. First of all, we're going back to the sort of Wes Anderson in a bad way, you know, like that's such a hipstery, lame thing to say. But that made me think, hotel bar lounge singers do not exist. I have never seen one in my 42 years of life. I don't know anyone who's ever seen one. This is much like radio soap operas. You know, like if I tell you what does a radio soap opera sound like, you could tell me, you know, like people speaking and the sounds in the background. Those haven't been on the air for like 50 years, but the parodies of them have continued. So it's this weird affectation that he's taking on, that he's some kind of lounge singer in a hotel, because that hasn't existed for a long time. Since they started putting TVs in hotel lounges, who needs, or stereo systems, who needs a lounge singer? But that said, I think I understand what he's getting at. He's highlighting the fact that he is basically a crooner, like most hotel lounge singers. I saved this album for the middle of the week because I knew I'd listen to it a lot while driving around and hanging around with my wife, and she very much likes crooners. And if you like clear, beautiful singing, astoundingly good singing, especially in the higher registers, this is for you. As far as the downside goes, so like I said, the main time I listened to this was driving my daughter to an appointment, and there was like a traffic accident, so we had to go a different way. We couldn't get on 490. It was a whole mess. And the whole way there, I'm driving. I'm just so happy and so excited. And then as we pull onto the street where the doctor is, I'm just like, God damn it, I'm sick of this. Ugh, and I almost threw my phone out the window. I was so sick of listening to this smooth, soft LA, high singing, and I realized I got so sick of it. Then I went to the doctor's appointment, left, started up the car, and I was like, you know, I could really go for some more Dent May. So, I don't know. I think you might have that same experience where a lot goes a little bit too far, just because of how much the album stays in this one atmosphere and this high voice. But upon further listenings, where I wasn't listening as intensely, where I allowed it to be in the background for some of the time I was listening to it, I listened all the way through and I liked it quite a bit. So, sorry, this chair is very squeaky. It's okay. They don't care about the squeakiness. Okay, so let's talk about let's go track by track in my Pink Citroën here. Opens up with the track Hotel Stationery, which is a good example of the kind of lyrics that Dent May can write, which are excellent. Hotel Stationery is a very evocative thing, right? I mean, I have so many notes I've written to people I care about on Hotel Stationery. Every time I go to a conference or a business trip, well, a conference is a business trip for a professor. Every time I go, I do drawings for my kids on Hotel Stationery, and then I frame them when I come back, and they have them on their walls still, right? It's this great souvenir, this great memory of where you were. So writing a song about this, it's a great way of communicating sadness and distance and longing, while also connecting you to different times you've seen Hotel Stationery. Apparently, according to some interview I read with him, he collects Hotel Stationery, which I've always wanted to collect in hotels, the little signs that say, "We care about the environment, please don't make us wash your towels." You know that? Like, every hotel is a different way of saying it, and it's always in the guise of like, "We care about the environment," but they just don't want to pay for the detergent. Okay, next track, I Could Use a Miracle, is another great example. The chorus is a beautiful example of his skill as a singer. He sings like, "I could use a miracle," and goes, "right now." And we get to see that he's not only good at singing up high, but going down as well. There's some strings here. At times there's strings, at times it's more produced, but it's not too intrusive. Very catchy. Then we get to my favorite track on the album, Didn't Get the Invite. Again, these titles just explain everything about the song in a good way, right? In a way similar to what, Randy Newman can do, right? Just here's the title to the song, you know what the song is going to be about. Kind of an interesting I'm going to play you a little bit of this, actually. I'm going to play you the end, because it's very catchy. Didn't get the invite, and it's, I don't mind being alone tonight, right? Great kind of, I mean, we've all had that feeling, right? Of like knowing there's a party, and knowing that you didn't get invited, and just trying to play it off cool, right? Because it's one thing to be bitter and sad. It's another thing to be bitter and sad and then have to pretend like you're not bitter and sad. That's what the song is able to do lyrically. That's quite impressive. But it's the singing that I really want to focus on here. So I'm going to play you the end of this song, which might be so long I get copyright strikes, but I'm sorry. If you see a commercial on this video, that's why. But I want to play it for you because it's a great example of what he can do here in terms of using his voice as a fascinating instrument. Rhythmically, there's interesting things going on here. And then at the very end, he just kind of drops out after saying, "Alone Tonight." And it's a very good example of the kind of interesting songwriting that's going on here, and production all at the same time, wrapped around these great, interesting lyrics. And definitely you'll notice just the way, the glossiness, the gauziness of the voice and the whole production. It just puts you so far in that West Coast, I was going to say vibe. That's a cheesy thing to say. West Coast vibe. I'm going to say it. Who cares? All right. Someone once put a comment on my video. You always remember the bad comments. It said, "Sorry, bro, you speak in cliches." No, you think in cliches. It's like, I think in cliches? I don't know. It's actually probably pretty fair. That's interesting. Okay, let's get to the song here. Didn't Get the Invite by Late Checkout by Dent May. Right? Isn't that kind of like a nice little ending there? But I don't mind being alone tonight. the sadness, the ambiguity that he's feeling about being alone. It's really quite well done. The next track is an intentionally dumb and smart song. It's called Sea Salt and Caramel. And it's about ice cream, right? And it's a super catchy love song where he's talking about ice cream, but he's actually talking about his girlfriend or his wife, or I don't know if he's married. But it's a nice mixture of a kind of, it's almost like, you know, oh honey, honey. It's like it's a song that's designed to be as catchy as possible. But at the same time, the lyrics are kind of intentionally complicated. So it's a song about how this person's like ice cream, from Wu-Tang Clan and many others have compared women to ice cream. But this is funny because he talks about it being his favorite flavor profile, which is a weird way to talk about someone you care about. And then he says, something grabs a hold of me, metaphysical sensuality. And this is the kind of song I really suggest you listen to it, Sea Salt and Caramel. I'll put a link to that down in the comments, down in the description, because there's also a video where you can kind of see the way that he presents himself. This is the kind of song that is so catchy and so well made that it should, if the world were just, would have this lifespan. Start off as a song that nobody knows, and then, you know, weird hipsters like me discover it, and then it actually catches on like on some commercial or something, and then it becomes like a big hit. And then after, even though I loved it when it was down here, I now hate it, and the song becomes ubiquitous because it's so catchy, and I hate the damn song. And every time I hear it, I remember how I liked it before it was big, but now I don't like it at all, and I just completely hate it. And I would hate Dent May, and I'd hate this album because Sea Salt and Caramel is played everywhere because it's that kind of catchy pop song. Then a couple years later, it would drop off, and I would hear it again on the radio, and I'd go, God damn, that is a good song. You know, it got overplayed, but realistically, it's a good song. But now, it's just indie music. It's just indie pop, so it'll never reach that high, but I think it really could. Also, quick thought on Sea Salt and Caramel. In my 5 minutes of research, I discovered that this guy is 35 years old, which is the same age as the Dr. Mrs. Payne. And her favorite flavor of ice cream is also sea salt and caramel. And I realized this is a millennial flavor. So just let you just focus on that for a second. Like, it wasn't big until 2008. I did more research on ice cream than I did on Dent May. I apologize. But it was only in 2008 when Haagen-Dazs released an ice cream called Sea Salt and Caramel, and then Starbucks came out with it. So it's just funny because as a Generation Xer, the flavor that was invented for us was sour apple. Like, that's the sort of flavor of my generation. And I would say sea salt and caramel is a very kind of hipstery millennial flavor. Okay. Next track, Bungalow Heaven. Again, very intentionally LA with that title. Bungalows are mostly in LA. This is a little more stripped down, which is nice. Guitar and voice. The guitar hangs over until eventually some bossa nova rhythm comes in. It's nice. Bless Your Heart. This is where I started to get a little bit tired of the album, I'd say. It has kind of like a twinned guitar line, a little too Eagles-ish. He sings about not being able to keep up with these times, which is basically a paraphrase of a Beach Boys lyric. That's fine. Next track, Full Speed Ahead, is the most Beach Boys voice on the whole album, the way that it sounds. A very nice post-chorus melody played with like it's like a horn and a voice at the same time. It's interesting. And then we get to Easier Said Than Done, which is a great... Okay, this is a ridiculous point, but if this song were maybe 2 songs earlier, it'd be better because it breaks up a little bit of that monotony I was talking about. Here we have bongos and synthesizers and like West Coast synthesizers and West Coast 808 drum machine claps. It has kind of a West Coast funk style thing here. It's almost even a groove. And again, these lyrics are great. Easier said than done to fall in love, but finally it's happening to me, with a great little instrumental break in there as well. The next track, LA River, is probably my least favorite, but it's interesting because if you lived in LA, the biggest joke is that the LA River is completely dry. There's just no water in it because LA is a desert and no one should live there. But it's all about the big dreams of LA, and it was funny. It's funny. I showed my son Pulp Fiction for the first time last week, and I was trying to get him set up for it. I was like, this is what you're going to see. Remember that drugs are bad, you know, and this is what influenced. And I talked to him for like 10 minutes about Godard because the movie is basically just a Godard copy in a lot of ways. And then I said, and at the very end, I was like, and also it's a love letter to LA. And he's like, another one? He's pretty precocious, 15 years old. He's like, why does everything that takes place in LA have to be a love letter to LA? Which I think is a good point. Which goes back to my original question, can something be to LA? Because do we really need another song about the big dreams of LA? I will say though, that when you live in LA, it is amazing that everybody is ambitious. Everybody is working towards a dream. Like it's a weird feeling when you're there. That kind of like permanent ambition. You know, like how like certain feelings dominate certain cities, you know, like Orlando is dominated by the amusement park. Like it just infiltrates everywhere, you know. And ambition is what does that in LA. It's interesting. Imagination is basically an interesting. This is cool because it's sort of like, you know, Astral Plane by Modern Lovers. It's a song about if I can't be with you, I can at least imagine you. But this is going sort of towards the end of the album, and this is where it starts to become a real theme album. If we start with the first track about the hotel stationery, it's clear that he misses somebody there. And then here he's talking about his life missing this woman. This is the simplest lyric, or man, I don't know his sexual orientation. He misses somebody. Very simple chords. I was also recently chided for being heteronormative, which is true. I am too heteronormative on this channel. I'm trying to fix that. So simple chords, you know, just two chords going back and forth, and his voice is just doing a lot of work over the chords. And it's a song about being lonely and missing your partner, like being lonely on the road. But then there's a little misstep here for me, because he talks about alcohol numbing the pain. And I love Nilsson too, and I love his self-destructive streak. But then this leads into the next track, Pour Another Round, which is one of these sort of self-pitying songs about drinking too much and being sad. And it doesn't fit this music. It doesn't fit this guy. That might be his real life. But the music that he's putting out is not the music of somebody who's like this close from self-destruction. You know, not like Gainsbourg or like Nilsson. His personality is actually much closer to that of Randy Newman, just a sort of upbeat guy who's singing nice songs and writing interesting things. So it's cool. I mean, it's a good song. This last one, Pour Another Round. There's like a little pedal steel in the end. Nice sparse usage of other instruments all throughout here. And then the chorus has kind of a sing-along, which is a nice feeling. But then everything is saved by the last track, Late Checkout. I love it when albums use their title track as their last track. It allows you to know that the whole thing is leading towards something. And Late Checkout, much like Hotel Stationery, is one of the most interesting parts of a hotel. Like when you're in a hotel and you don't, because there's no universal policy. And so you're sitting there and you're like, is it noon? Is this gonna be one of those lame ones that's like 11? What if it's 10? What if they don't do late checkout? Because not everyone does late checkout. And so he's able to take this sort of universal feeling about hotels and expand it to being about not ready to leave, not being ready to say goodbye. And he sings bye, this crazy vocal acrobatics. And it leaves a nice kind of bittersweet feeling that has permeated most of the album and that exists in most hotel rooms. So there you go. I don't think I've answered my question, can you be TOO L.A? I have. You can be TOO L.A. You can be the Eagles. But anything below the Eagles, I would say is great. And I think this album does a lot of things. And I'm talking about it as though it's some kind of like modern, postmodern take on the LA scene. There's nothing about this album that feels like it's trying too hard to be precious or to be a certain thing. I think it just is what it is. And what it is a very quality, soft-edged LA rock album. Okay, well, until next time, my son is not watching Pulp Fiction. He's quietly playing Animal Crossing in the other room. What are you doing now over there? Nothing. Okay, he's probably just catching fruit and selling it. All right, until next time, there's the camera.